The metal cuffs bit into her wrists so deep that drops of bright crimson blood were dripping onto the pristine, cream-colored carpet of the first-class cabin. 17-year-old Maya didn't scream. She didn't fight. She just stared at the flight attendant who was smirking down at her, and the older woman clutching her pearls in mock horror. They thought they had won. They thought this was just another thug being put in her place. But they didn't check the passenger manifest, and they certainly didn't know whose private jet had just touched down on the tarmac outside, or that the man stepping off of it was about to end their careers and their lives as they knew them, forever. The massive engines of the transatlantic 747 hummed with a low, vibrating power as the plane sat at the gate of JFK International Airport. Outside, the rain lashed against the reinforced glass, but inside the first-class cabin of Flight 902 to London, the air smelled of expensive leather, champagne, and old money. Maya Sterling adjusted her noise-cancelling headphones, pulling the hood of her oversized charcoal-grey hoodie further over her head. She was 17, with dark, curly hair pulled back into a messy bun and tired eyes. She had been up for 48 hours studying for finals at her boarding school in Connecticut, and all she wanted was to sleep until the plane hit the tarmac at Heathrow. She curled her legs up on the wide, lie-flat seat of 1A. It was the most coveted spot on the plane. To anyone passing by, Maya looked like a teenager who had gotten lost on her way to economy. Her sneakers were scuffed, her backpack was frayed at the straps, and she wasn't wearing a stitch of makeup. "Excuse me." The voice was sharp, icy, and dripping with disdain. Maya didn't hear it at first. The smooth jazz playing in her headphones was too loud. A manicured hand, adorned with a ring the size of a walnut, reached out and tapped Maya's shoulder. Hard. It wasn't a polite tap. It was a shove disguised as a touch. Maya pulled her headphones down, blinking. "Yes?" Standing in the aisle was a woman who looked like she had been manufactured in a factory that specialized in entitlement. She was in her late 50s, wearing a Chanel tweed suit that cost more than most people's cars, with blonde hair sprayed into a helmet of perfection. This was Eleanor Vance. "You are in my seat," Eleanor snapped, clutching her boarding pass like a weapon. Maya glanced at the digital display on the suite wall. It clearly read 1A. Then she looked at her own ticket on her phone. "I don't think so, Mom. I'm assigned 1A. Eleanor let out a short, incredulous laugh. She turned her head, scanning the cabin for an audience. "Did you hear that? The child thinks she's assigned 1A. She turned back to Maya, her eyes narrowing into slits. "Listen to me, little girl. Economy is back that way. You've had your fun sitting in the big chair for a selfie, but now the adults need to sit down. Move. Now." Maya felt that familiar prickle of heat on the back of her neck. She took a slow breath. Her father had taught her the sterling pause. Never react immediately. Always assess. "I have a ticket," Maya said calmly, holding up her phone screen. "Scan it if you want." Eleanor didn't even look at the screen. Instead, she flagged down a flight attendant who was busy prepping pre-flight drinks. "Brenda, get over here," Eleanor barked. Brenda, the purser for the flight, hurried over. She was a tall woman with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes and a name tag that sat perfectly straight on her uniform. She knew Eleanor Vance. Eleanor was a Diamond Medallion member, the wife of a senator, and a notorious complainer. "Is there a problem, Mrs. Vance?" Brenda asked, her voice syrupy sweet. "There is a massive problem," Eleanor hissed, pointing a manicured finger at Maya. "This person is refusing to vacate my seat. I specifically requested 1A. My assistant confirmed it this morning." Brenda turned her gaze to Maya. The sweetness vanished from her face instantly, replaced by a cold, bureaucratic glare. She saw the hoodie. She saw the skin color. She saw the scuffed sneakers. And she made a decision. "Miss," Brenda said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Let me see your boarding pass." Maya held up the phone again. "It's right here." Brenda glanced at it, barely processing the QR code. Mobile tickets glitch all the time. This is a system error. 1A is reserved for our high-priority executive partners. There is absolutely no way the system assigned it to a teenager flying solo. You clearly photoshopped this or hacked the app. "Excuse me?" Maya sat up straighter, her calm wavering slightly. "I didn't hack anything. My father booked this." "I don't care who booked it," Brenda interrupted, snapping her fingers toward the economy curtain. "We are departing in 10 minutes. I don't have time to debug a teenager's phone. Grab your bag and go to the back. There's a middle seat open in row 42. If you move now, I won't call security for ticket fraud." The other passengers in first class were watching now. A man in a suit in 2B looked uncomfortable but said nothing. An older couple in row 3 were whispering and shaking their heads, looking at Maya with suspicion. "I paid for this seat," Maya said, her voice firming up. "I'm not moving." Eleanor Vance scoffed loud enough for the pilot to hear. "Oh, for heaven's sake, she's probably a stowaway. Just get her off the plane, Brenda. She smells like marijuana." Maya's jaw dropped. "I haven't smoked anything. That's ridiculous." "I smell it too," Brenda lied effortlessly, sniffing the air theatrically. "That's it. You are disrupting the flight crew and disturbing premium passengers. I am ordering you to leave this aircraft immediately." Maya didn't move. She looked Brenda dead in the eye. "If you kick me off this plane, you are going to regret it." "My name is Maya Sterling. Does that mean anything to you?" Brenda laughed. It was a cruel, dismissive sound. "Sterling? Like the silver? Honey, unless your name is security, I don't care. Last warning." "No," Maya said. She crossed her arms. "I'm staying." Brenda's face turned red. She pressed the call button on her interphone. "Captain, we have a level 2 security threat in the first class cabin. Non-compliant passenger refusing to deplane. Possible intoxication. Requesting removal assistance." The air in the cabin shifted. It went from tense to dangerous. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs, but she didn't show it. She pulled her phone closer and sent a single text message. "Dad, JFK, Flight 902. They're kicking me off. It's bad." The 3 dots bubbled for a second. Then a reply. "Stay put. Do not move. I am landing in 4 minutes." The heavy tread of boots echoed on the jet bridge. Most people assume that when there is an issue on a plane, the regular airport police come. But at JFK, specifically for high-risk flights or VIP disturbances, there was a private security contractor that worked directly with the airline to expedite removals. They were known for being rough, efficient, and asking 0 questions. 2 men entered the cabin. One was named Officer Rickard, a man built like a vending machine with a buzz cut and eyes that looked like he hadn't slept in a week. The other was younger, Officer Miller, who looked nervous. "Where's the threat?" Rickard grunted, his hand resting on his heavy utility belt. Brenda pointed an accusatory finger at Maya, who was still sitting calmly in 1A. "Her. She's trespassing, possibly high, and refusing crew instructions. Mrs. Vance here needs her seat." Eleanor Vance chimed in, smoothing her skirt. "She was aggressive, officer. I felt threatened. She lunged at me when I asked her to check her ticket." It was a blatant lie. Maya hadn't moved an inch. Rickard marched up to 1A. He didn't ask for her ticket. He didn't ask for her side of the story. He saw a young black girl in a hoodie in a seat worth 15,000, and he saw a wealthy white woman claiming she was dangerous. The math in his head was simple. "Up!" Rickard barked. "Now!" "I have a right to be here," Maya said, clutching the armrests. "My father is landing. If you just check the manifest—" "I said up!" Rickard didn't wait. He reached down, grabbing Maya by the bicep. His grip was like a vice. "Ow! You're hurting me!" Maya cried out as he yanked her out of the seat. She stumbled, her backpack strap catching on the armrest. "Resisting!" Rickard shouted, escalating the situation instantly. "Stop resisting!" "I'm not resisting!" Maya yelled, trying to regain her balance. Rickard spun her around, slamming her chest first against the cabin wall. The sound of the impact was a sickening thud. "Hey!" The man in 2B finally spoke up, standing halfway up. "That's a kid. You don't need to—" "Sit down, sir, or you're coming too!" Rickard roared over his shoulder. The man hesitated, looked at Rickard's aggressive stance, and slowly sat back down, looking ashamed. Brenda watched with a smug expression, arms crossed. Eleanor Vance took a sip of her pre-flight champagne, watching the violence as if it were a reality TV show. "You're under arrest for trespassing and assaulting a flight crew member," Rickard growled into Maya's ear. He pulled a pair of heavy-duty zip-tie handcuffs from his belt. These weren't the smooth metal police cuffs. These were jagged, industrial-grade plastic restraints used for combative detainees. He wrenched Maya's arms behind her back at an unnatural angle. Maya gasped, tears springing to her eyes as her shoulder popped audibly. "Too tight," she gasped. "Please, it's too tight." Rickard ignored her. He cinched the zip ties as hard as he could. The plastic edges dug instantly into the soft skin of her wrists. He pulled them so tight that the circulation cut off immediately. "Get moving," Rickard shoved her toward the exit. "My bag," Maya whispered. "Forget the bag. It'll be destroyed as suspicious luggage," Brenda said, picking up Maya's backpack and tossing it carelessly into the jet bridge corridor. They dragged Maya out of the first-class cabin. As they crossed the threshold, Rickard shoved her again. Maya tripped over the lip of the door. With her hands bound behind her back, she couldn't break her fall. She slammed onto the metal floor of the jet bridge, her chin hitting the grates hard. Blood sprayed from her lip. But worse was her wrists. The impact of the fall had yanked the zip ties even tighter. The plastic serrations sliced through her skin. Maya lay there for a second, dazed, staring at the floor. A drop of blood fell from her wrist. Then another. The zip ties had cut a vein. Officer Miller looked down, his face paling. Rickard. She's bleeding. A lot." Rickard scoffed, hauling Maya up by her hair. "She's fine, it's just a scratch. Drama queen." They dragged her to the top of the jet bridge, right by the gate counter. Passengers for the flight were still lining up to board, staring in horror as a weeping, bleeding teenage girl was manhandled by 2 large guards. "Put her in the holding chair," Rickard ordered. They shoved her into a metal chair bolted to the wall near the boarding desk. Rickard then took a second pair of cuffs, metal ones this time, and looped them through the bloody zip ties, chaining her to the arm of the chair. Maya's hands were turning purple. The blood was now dripping steadily, pooling on the cheap airport carpet. "Please," Maya sobbed, her composure finally breaking. "My hands! I can't feel my hands." Brenda walked out of the plane, holding a clipboard. She looked at the bleeding girl and rolled her eyes. "Oh, stop crying. You should have thought about that before you tried to steal a first-class seat." "I need a medic," Officer Miller said quietly to Brenda. "She's losing a lot of blood." Brenda checked her watch. "We push back in 2 minutes. I don't have time for paperwork. Call the paramedics after we take off. I don't want a delay on my record." She turned to go back onto the plane. Eleanor Vance was settling into seat 1A, sipping champagne, oblivious to the blood soaking the carpet just 30 feet away. Maya slumped in the chair, her vision blurring. The pain in her wrists was blinding, hot white spikes shooting up her arms. She felt cold. "Dad," she thought, her head lolling forward. "Where are you?" Suddenly, the ambient noise of the terminal changed. The chatter of the passengers died down. The announcements over the PA system seemed to stop. A hush swept through gate B42 like a wave. The glass doors at the far end of the terminal, the ones reserved for diplomatic envoys and royalty, hissed open. 6 men in black suits walked in. They moved with military precision, forming a V formation. They weren't airport security. They weren't police. They wore lapel pins that shone like silver daggers. In the center of the formation walked a man who seemed to absorb the light around him. He was tall, 6'4", wearing a bespoke Italian suit that cost more than the entire terminal. He had salt and pepper hair and eyes that were currently burning with a rage so cold it could freeze hell over. It was Marcus Sterling, CEO of Sterling Global, the man who had just acquired the majority stake in the airline alliance that Transatlantic belonged to, and he was looking directly at the bleeding girl chained to the chair. Rickard, not recognizing him, stepped forward, his hand on his taser. "Sir, this is a restricted police operation area. Back away." Marcus Sterling didn't slow down. He didn't even blink. He kept walking, his pace accelerating, his eyes locked on his daughter. "Sir, I said stop," Rickard yelled, unclipping his taser. One of the men in black suits moved. It was a blur of motion. In less than a second, Rickard was face down on the carpet, his arm twisted behind his back, the taser sliding across the floor. The terminal gasped. Marcus reached the chair. He dropped to his knees, ignoring the dirt and the blood on the floor. His hands, usually steady enough to sign billion-dollar mergers, were trembling as he hovered them over Maya's wrists. "Maya," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Maya, baby, look at me." Maya lifted her head slowly. Her face was pale, her lip split. "Daddy," she rasped. They said I stole the seat." Marcus looked at the zip ties. He saw the purple skin. He saw the blood dripping from her fingertips. He saw the metal cuffs biting into the wounds. He stood up. The silence in the terminal was absolute. Even the engines outside seemed to quiet down. Marcus turned slowly to face Officer Miller, who was shaking, and Brenda, who had just stepped back out of the jet bridge to see what the commotion was. Brenda froze. She recognized him. Everyone in the airline industry knew that face. It was the face on the cover of Forbes magazine in the seatback pocket of every plane in her fleet. Mr. Sterling," Brenda stammered, the color draining from her face so fast she looked like a ghost. Marcus didn't speak to her. He pulled a phone from his pocket. He didn't dial. He just spoke into it. "Shut it down," Marcus said. His voice was low, but it carried to every corner of the gate. "Shut down the entire airport. No one takes off. No one lands. And bring me the head of the Port Authority. Now." He looked at Brenda. "And find me the pilot of Flight 902, Marcus said, his voice dropping to a terrifying whisper. "I want to know exactly who let this happen to my daughter." The silence that followed Marcus Sterling's order was heavier than the 747 waiting outside. Within seconds, the chaotic energy of the terminal shifted into a terrifying, organized precision. The 6 men in black suits, Marcus's personal security detail, known in corporate circles as the Erasers, fanned out. 2 of them secured the jet bridge entrance, physically blocking the airline staff from retreating onto the plane. 2 others stood over the prone form of Officer Rickard, who was now groaning into the carpet, his hands zip-tied with his own restraints. But Marcus only had eyes for Maya. "EMS, get the medic kit, now!" Marcus barked, not looking up. One of his guards produced a trauma kit instantly. "Don't move, sweetheart," Marcus whispered, his voice trembling with a suppressed rage that frightened the onlookers more than his shouting had. He produced a small, serrated knife from his pocket. "I'm going to cut these off. It might pinch." Maya nodded weakly, tears streaming down her face. "I can't feel my fingers, Dad." Marcus's jaw tightened so hard, a muscle feathered in his cheek. He slid the blade between the plastic and her lacerated skin. With surgical care, he sliced through the zip ties. They snapped open with a sharp crack. Maya's arms fell limp to her sides. The rush of blood returning to her hands was agonizing. She screamed, a raw, guttural sound that echoed off the high glass ceilings of Terminal 4. I know," Marcus soothed, wrapping his bespoke suit jacket around her shoulders, ruining the $10,000 fabric with her blood. "Breathe through it." Brenda, the flight attendant, took a hesitant step forward. Her confident facade was cracking like cheap porcelain. She saw the way the airport police, the real police, who were now running toward the gate, were deferring to Marcus's security team. She saw the pin on Marcus's lapel, the insignia of the Sterling Group, the conglomerate that had just bought a controlling interest in the airline's parent company 3 days ago. The memo had gone out this morning. New ownership, immediate audit. Brenda hadn't read it. "Mr. Sterling," Brenda's voice quavered, pitchy and desperate. "You have to understand. Protocol dictates that when a passenger is belligerent..." Marcus stood up. He turned slowly, like a turret gun swiveling to find a target. He was a head taller than her, and the look in his eyes was void of any humanity. "Belligerent?" Marcus repeated the word softly, tasting it. She refused to verify her ticket," Brenda stammered, sweating now. She was occupying a seat reserved for VIPs. "We have a duty to our Diamond Medallion members like Mrs. Vance to ensure the cabin is exclusive." Marcus stepped into her personal space. "My daughter is the VIP. That seat was booked under the name M. Sterling. Did you bother to check the full manifest? Or did you just see a black teenager in a hoodie and decide she didn't belong?" Brenda opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "And," Marcus continued, his voice rising just enough to be heard by the crowd gathering around the gate, "since when does removing a passenger involve severing the median nerve in their wrists? Since when does it involve dragging a minor across a jet bridge until she bleeds?" I didn't know she was hurt," Brenda lied. "Liar," Officer Miller spoke up. The young security guard was standing by the wall, looking sick. I told you she was bleeding. You checked your watch and said you didn't want a delay." Brenda spun around, eyes wide. "You shut your mouth." "That's enough," a booming voice interrupted. Director Holloway, the head of JFK Airport Operations, came running down the concourse, flanked by 4 Port Authority officers. He was a man who usually commanded respect, but right now he looked terrified. He saw the scene, the billionaire media tycoon covered in blood, the teenager receiving oxygen from a medic, and the private security detail holding the gate hostage. "Mr. Sterling," Holloway panted, "please, we need to de-escalate. You can't just order a shutdown of JFK. The FAA..." "I own the fuel logistics for this airport, Holloway," Marcus said, not breaking eye contact with Brenda. "And as of Tuesday, I own the debt regarding this terminal's renovation. If I say we stop, we stop, or I pull every Sterling fuel truck off the tarmac right now, and you won't get a single plane in the air for a week." Holloway swallowed hard. He knew Marcus wasn't bluffing. Sterling Global didn't just have money, they had infrastructure. "What do you want?" Holloway asked. "I want the pilot of Flight 902 off that plane," Marcus said. "I want every member of this flight crew detained for questioning regarding assault on a minor, and I want the woman who started this." "The woman?" Holloway asked. "The passenger," Marcus said, looking down the jet bridge. "Eleanor Vance." "Sir," Holloway reasoned, "Mrs. Vance is the wife of Senator Vance. If we drag her off—" "I don't care if she's the wife of the Pope," Marcus snarled. "She decided to play a game with my daughter. Now she plays with me." He turned to his head of security. "Take Maya to the private clinic in the Sterling hangar. Get the best hand surgeon in New York. If she loses permanent sensation in her fingers, I will burn this airline to the ground." "Dad, no," Maya whispered, clutching his sleeve with her good hand. "Don't leave me." Marcus softened instantly, kissing her forehead. "I'm not leaving you, baby. I'm just going to get your bag, and I'm going to make sure no one ever treats you like this again. I'll be right behind you." As the medics wheeled Maya away, Marcus straightened his tie. He wiped a smear of blood from his cheek. Then he looked at the jet bridge. "Open the door," he ordered. Inside Flight 902, the atmosphere was confusing. The plane should have pushed back 10 minutes ago. The engines were spooled up, the safety video had played, but the aircraft hadn't moved. The captain had come over the intercom, mumbling something about last-minute manifest discrepancies. But the passengers in first class were getting restless. Eleanor Vance was on her second glass of champagne. She was scrolling through her phone, typing a Facebook status update. Finally settling in for London. Had to deal with some riffraff trying to scam their way into first class. Thankfully, the crew knows how to treat their real customers. Luxury travel while London-bound. She hit post and smiled. "Excuse me." She waved her empty glass at a passing flight attendant, a junior stewardess named Sarah who looked terrified. "More bubbles. And tell the captain to get moving. I have a dinner reservation at the Shard tomorrow night." I can't serve right now, Mum," Sarah whispered, glancing nervously at the cockpit door. "We've been ordered to hold all service." "Ridiculous," Eleanor huffed. "Where is Brenda? Send Brenda to me. She knows how to get things done." Suddenly, the front cabin door, which had been closed and armed, was thumped from the outside. The passengers jumped. The heavy locking mechanism turned. The door swung open, letting in a blast of humid, rainy air and the smell of jet fuel. Captain Henderson, a grey-haired veteran pilot, stormed out of the cockpit. "What is going on? The jet bridge should be retracted. Who opened that door?" Marcus Sterling stepped onto the plane. He didn't look like a passenger. He looked like an executioner. The blood on his white dress shirt was a stark, violent contrast to the sterile luxury of the cabin. Behind him, 2 of his security detail stood like sentinels, blocking the exit. Captain Henderson stopped dead in his tracks. "Sir, you cannot board this aircraft. We are active for departure. You are violating federal aviation." "Captain Henderson," Marcus said, his voice calm, deep, and projecting through the silent cabin. "You have been flying for 22 years. You have a pension waiting for you in 3 years. You have a vacation home in Key West." The captain blinked, taken aback. "How do you know that?" "Because I sign your paychecks," Marcus said. "I am Marcus Sterling." A collective gasp went through the cabin. The man in seat 2B dropped his magazine. Everyone knew the name. The takeover had been on the news all week. Mr. Sterling," Henderson stammered, his authority evaporating. "I didn't know you were... We weren't informed." "Clearly," Marcus said. He walked past the captain, into the first-class cabin. The air in the cabin grew thin. Marcus walked slowly down the aisle. He looked at the passengers who had watched his daughter be assaulted. He looked at the older couple in row 3, who had shaken their heads in disgust at Maya. They looked down, unable to meet his gaze. He stopped at seat 1A. Eleanor Vance looked up. She didn't recognize him immediately. She just saw a man with blood on his shirt looming over her. "Excuse me?" Eleanor said, her voice shrill. "This is a private suite. You are invading my personal space. Stewardess." "Brenda isn't coming," Marcus said coldly. "Brenda is currently in the custody of the Port Authority police." Eleanor froze. "What?" "You wanted this seat," Marcus said, gesturing to the leather armchair she was nestled in. "You made a scene. You lied to the police. You claimed a 17-year-old girl, my daughter, was a threat." Eleanor's face went from confused to pale in a heartbeat. That girl was your daughter?" "Her name is Maya," Marcus said. "And because of your little power play, she is currently in an ambulance with nerve damage in her hands." Eleanor scrambled for a defense. "I didn't know. She was wearing a hoodie. She didn't look like she belonged here. I have been flying this airline for 30 years. "And you've taken your last flight," Marcus said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. He held it up so the passengers behind her could see. It was a live feed of the airport news. The headline read, "JFK shutdown. Sterling Global CEO intervenes after daughter assaulted by airline staff." "Do you know what happens when a video of a billionaire's daughter being dragged off a plane goes viral, Mrs. Vance?" Marcus asked. "We haven't released the security footage yet. But we have it. The footage of you smirking, of you lying to the officers." "You can't release that," Eleanor whispered, clutching her pearls. "My husband is a senator. It will ruin him." "He's already ruined," Marcus replied. "I just got off the phone with the majority leader. Your husband is being removed from the Transportation Committee as we speak. Conflict of interest, considering his wife abuses her status to assault minors on commercial flights." Eleanor gasped, dropping her champagne glass. It shattered on the floor, shards of crystal scattering everywhere. "Now," Marcus said, leaning in close, his voice dropping to a terrifying whisper. "Get out of my seat." "But the police," Eleanor stammered. "I can't just leave." "Oh, you're not just leaving," Marcus corrected her. "You are being arrested for filing a false police report, assault, and interference with a flight crew." He pointed to the door. 2 Port Authority officers stepped onto the plane. They weren't the private security goons from before. These were federal officers. "Mrs. Vance," one of the officers said, holding up a pair of handcuffs. "Please stand up and place your hands behind your back." Eleanor Vance, the queen of the country club, let out a wail of despair. "No, you can't do this. Do you know who I am?" "Yes," Marcus said, stepping aside so the officers could reach her. "You're the woman who made the mistake of thinking power protects you from consequences. It doesn't. It just makes the fall harder." The officers hauled Eleanor out of the seat. As they marched her down the aisle, sobbing and begging, not a single person in first class said a word. The man in 2B, who had tried to speak up earlier, looked at Marcus and gave a small, respectful nod. Marcus didn't nod back. He wasn't done. He turned to the rest of the cabin. "This flight is cancelled," he announced. "This aircraft is now a crime scene. Everyone deplane. You will be rebooked on other carriers, but not this airline. Transatlantic is grounded until I personally review every single employee file." He looked at Captain Henderson. "And Captain?" Marcus said. "Yes, sir?" Henderson asked, looking like he was about to vomit. "You sat in that cockpit and watched your monitors while a girl was assaulted 10 feet from your door. You are responsible for the safety of every soul on this manifest. You failed." Marcus adjusted his cuffs. Consider your retirement effective immediately, without the pension. The video didn't just go viral, it became a global event. A passenger in row 4, a tech blogger named David, had filmed the entire incident on his phone. He uploaded it to Twitter X with the caption, "They just handcuffed a kid until she bled because a Karen wanted her seat. You won't believe who her dad is." Within 3 hours, the video had 40 million views. The juxtaposition was too perfect, too horrific. The video showed Eleanor Vance sneering, "She smells like marijuana," followed immediately by the clip of Marcus Sterling, one of the most powerful black men in the world, kneeling in his ruined suit, cutting the zip ties from his daughter's bloody wrists. The hashtag #Justice for Maya trended #1 worldwide. Transatlantic Airlines stock plummeted 18% before the market even closed. But inside the VIP wing of Mount Sinai Hospital, the mood was somber. Maya lay in a bed surrounded by flowers sent by celebrities, politicians, and activists. Her arms were heavily bandaged, elevated on pillows. The room was quiet, save for the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor and the tapping of rain against the window. Dr. Aris Thorne, the top neurosurgeon in the state, stood at the foot of the bed, holding a tablet. Marcus stood by the window, looking out at the city skyline, his posture rigid. "Give it to us straight, Aris," Marcus said, his voice gravelly. Dr. Thorne sighed, taking off his glasses. The radial nerve in her left wrist was severely compressed. The ulnar nerve in the right was lacerated by the plastic tie. "We've repaired the tissue, but—" He hesitated. "But what?" Maya asked, her voice small. "Fine motor control is going to be an issue," Dr. Thorne said gently. "Grasping small objects, rapid finger movements. It's going to be difficult. You'll need months of physical therapy just to hold a pen without shaking." Maya closed her eyes, a single tear escaping. She turned her head into the pillow. Marcus turned from the window, his face a mask of fury. "She's 17, Aris. She's a prodigy. You know what this means for her." "I know," Dr. Thorne said. "I know who she is." The world knew Maya Sterling as the daughter of a billionaire. But in the underground world of competitive strategy, she was known by a different name, Ghost Queen. Maya wasn't just a student. She was an international master in chess, on the verge of becoming one of the youngest grandmasters in history. She specialized in bullet and blitz chess, games played at lightning speed, where players had mere seconds to make moves. It required intellect, yes, but it also required extreme manual dexterity. You had to move pieces and hit the clock in fractions of a second. That was why she had been so tired on the plane. She hadn't just been studying for school finals. She had been coming off a 48-hour secret charity tournament in Brooklyn, where she had defeated 3 grandmasters back-to-back. "I can't play," Maya whispered, looking at her bandaged hands. "Dad, the London Open is in 2 weeks. If I can't move the pieces fast enough, I'll time out. I lose everything." Marcus walked over to the bed and sat down. He took her shoulder gently, careful not to touch her arms. "You won't lose everything," Marcus swore, his voice fierce. "You have your mind. That's the weapon. We will fix the hands. I will fly in specialists from Switzerland, from Tokyo. I don't care. You will play again." Maya looked at him, her eyes dull. "It's not just the hands, Dad. It's them. The way they looked at me. Like I was trash, like I didn't exist." Marcus stood up. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "They're going to wish they didn't exist," Marcus said. "I promised you justice. I'm going to give you more than that. I'm going to give you a slaughter." He walked out of the hospital room and pulled out his phone. He dialed his chief legal officer, a shark of a woman named Veronica Sharp. Veronica, Marcus said, trigger the scorched earth clause. On who, sir? Veronica asked. The airline? Everyone, Marcus said. The airline, the security contractor, Eleanor Vance, and her husband. I want to buy the bank that holds the mortgage on their house in the Hamptons. I want to buy the publishing house that prints the senator's memoirs. I want to buy the country club where Eleanor plays bridge. Sir, Veronica warned, that will cost hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not financially sound. I'm not looking for a return on investment, Veronica, Marcus said, stepping into the elevator. I'm looking for a total liquidation of the Vance legacy. Leave them nothing but the clothes on their backs. 6 months later. The conference room at Sterling Global Headquarters was a fortress of glass and steel. At one end of the long mahogany table sat Eleanor Vance. She looked different. The Chanel suit was gone, replaced by a modest, off-the-rack department store dress. Her hair was pulled back, undyed, showing grey roots. She looked 10 years older. The stress of the last half-year had hollowed her out. Beside her sat her lawyer, Arthur Pendenker, a man who looked like he was sweating through his cheap suit. Across the table sat Marcus Sterling. He was leaning back in his chair, perfectly relaxed. Next to him was Maya. Maya's casts were off. She wore compression gloves on both hands. She was staring at a chessboard set up on the table, idly moving a pawn with her thumb and forefinger. The movement was slow, slightly shaky, but deliberate. Mr. Sterling, Arthur began, clearing his throat nervously. My client is prepared to offer a heartfelt public apology. We are also willing to settle for the insurance maximum of $2 million. We believe this is a generous offer considering— Stop, Marcus said. He didn't shout. He just held up a hand. He slid a file folder across the table. This is not a negotiation, Mr. Pendenker, Marcus said. This is an autopsy. Arthur opened the folder. His eyes widened. What is this? Arthur asked. That, Marcus said, is the deed to the Vance family estate in Martha's Vineyard. I bought the note from the bank last week. You were 3 months behind on payments. Eleanor made a choking sound. That has been in my husband's family for 4 generations. It was, Marcus corrected. Now it's a vacation home for my staff. I'm turning it into a retreat for flight attendants who have been victims of workplace harassment. Marcus slid another paper across. And this, Marcus continued, is a forensic accounting of your husband's campaign finances. Turns out, Senator Vance was using campaign funds to pay for your first-class lifestyle. The private jets, the jewelry, even that seat on Flight 902. It was all embezzled money. Eleanor was shaking now. You can't prove that. I don't have to. Marcus smiled, a cold, predatory smile. I already sent the file to the FBI this morning. Your husband was arrested 20 minutes ago on the Senate floor. It's on CNN right now if you want to turn on the TV. Eleanor buried her face in her hands, sobbing. Why? Why are you doing this? I said I was sorry. It was a mistake. I didn't know she was your daughter. Maya stopped moving the chess piece. She looked up. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, and hard. That's the point, Mrs. Vance, Maya said softly. Her voice was steady, contrasting with her trembling hands. If I was anyone else's daughter, if I was just a girl from the Bronx with no dad to save me, you would have gotten away with it. You would have sipped your champagne while I bled out in a holding cell. Maya stood up. She walked around the table to where Eleanor was weeping. You didn't respect me because of how I looked, Maya said. You underestimated me. You thought I was a pawn. But you forgot one thing about chess, Mrs. Vance. Maya picked up the black queen from the board. Pawns can turn into queens if they make it across the board, and once they do, they are the most dangerous piece in the game. Maya dropped the chess piece on the table in front of Eleanor. It made a heavy thack sound. "I'm suing you personally," Maya said. "Not for money. I don't need your money. I'm suing for admission. Part of the settlement is that you will plead guilty to felony assault. You will serve time, real jail time, not house arrest." "I can't go to jail!" Eleanor shrieked. "I'm 58 years old." "You should have thought about that before you put a 17-year-old in shackles," Marcus said, standing up to join his daughter. Arthur, the lawyer, closed his briefcase. He looked at his client, then at the file on the table proving the senator's crimes. He realized the ship wasn't just sinking, it was already at the bottom of the ocean. "Mrs. Vance," Arthur said quietly, "I advise you to take the deal. If this goes to trial, with the evidence they have, you'll get 10 years. They are offering you 2. Eleanor looked at Marcus, begging with her eyes for mercy. She found none. She looked at Maya, hoping to see the scared teenager from the plane. Instead, she saw a grandmaster who had just delivered checkmate. "I'll take it," Eleanor whispered, defeated. Marcus nodded to his security team. "Escort Mrs. Vance out. The police are waiting in the lobby to process her booking." As Eleanor was led away, weeping, broken, and stripped of her status, Maya sat back down at the chessboard. She looked at her shaking hands. "Did you see her face, Dad?" Maya asked quietly. "I did," Marcus said. "Are you okay?" Maya took a deep breath. She picked up a white knight. Her hand shook, but she forced her muscles to stabilize. She placed the piece firmly on a square. "I will be," Maya said. "I have a tournament to win." The Grand Hall of the Excel Centre in London was deafeningly silent. 3,000 spectators sat in the darkened auditorium, their eyes glued to the massive screens suspended above the stage. In the center of the spotlight sat 2 people at a small table. On the left was Sebastian Cross, the reigning European speed chess champion. He was 25, arrogant, and known for his psychological warfare. He played fast, aggressive chess, designed to intimidate opponents into making mistakes. On the right was Maya Sterling. She looked small in the oversized gaming chair. She was wearing her signature charcoal hoodie, the hood down this time, revealing the fierce determination in her eyes. But everyone was looking at her hands. They were encased in black, medical-grade compression gauntlets that ran from her knuckles to her elbows. The nerve damage from the zip ties hadn't fully healed. Her fingers still had a faint, rhythmic tremor. The commentators in the booth above whispered into their microphones. "It's a miracle she's even here, folks. You know the story. 6 months ago, Maya Sterling was assaulted on a plane, suffering severe nerve damage. She was told she'd never play bullet chess again. Yet here she is, in the finals of the London Open. It's inspiring, Jim. But let's be real. This is blitz. 3 minutes on the clock. No increment. It's a physical sport as much as a mental one. Her mind is sharp. But can her hands keep up? Cross is going to try to flag her. Move so fast she physically can't hit the clock in time." On the stage, Sebastian Cross leaned forward. He smiled, a thin, patronizing expression that reminded Maya painfully of Eleanor Vance. "You should have stayed in the hospital, kid," Cross whispered, low enough so the arbiter couldn't hear. "You're going to embarrass yourself. Your hand is shaking like a leaf." Maya didn't look up. She was adjusting her pieces. Rook, knight, bishop, queen. "My hand might shake," Maya replied calmly, "but my mind doesn't." "We'll see," Cross sneered. The arbiter stepped forward. "Shake hands. Black to move. Start." Start your clocks." Cross extended a hand. Maya hesitated, then reached out with her gloved hand. Her grip was weak, but her gaze was steady. Click. Cross slapped the clock. The game began. It was a blur. To the untrained eye, it looked like chaos. Hands darting back and forth, pieces flying across the board, the thwack, thwack, thwack of the clock buttons echoing in the hall. Cross played the Sicilian Najdorf, a notoriously aggressive opening. He was testing her. He wanted to complicate the board, force her to calculate complex lines that would eat up her time. Maya countered with the English attack. She wasn't playing defensively. She was going straight for his throat, 1 minute in. Maya's hand was hurting. A dull ache started in her wrist and shot up to her elbow. Every time she grabbed a pawn, a spike of pain jolted her system. She gritted her teeth, sweat beading on her forehead. "Focus," she told herself. "Don't think about the pain. Think about the lines." Cross saw her wince. He smirked and sped up. He started banging the pieces down harder, trying to rattle her. Thwack, thwack, thwack. Too slow, he taunted under his breath. Maya glanced at the clock. Cross. 1:45. Sterling. 1:12. She was 30 seconds behind. In blitz chess, 30 seconds was an eternity. If the clock hit 0, she lost instantly, no matter how good her position was. The crowd sensed the trouble. A murmur went through the room. In the front row, Marcus Sterling sat with his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. He wasn't breathing. He watched his daughter fighting, not just an opponent, but her own body. "Come on, Maya," Marcus thought. "Use the Sterling pause. Breathe." On the board, the position was getting critical. Cross had launched a massive attack on Maya's king. His queen and rook were bearing down. It looked like checkmate was inevitable in 5 moves. Maya's hand trembled violently as she reached for her knight. She fumbled it. The piece slipped from her fingers and wobbled on the board. "Touch move!" Cross shouted instantly, appealing to the arbiter. "She touched the knight! She has to move it!" The arbiter nodded. "You touched it, Miss Sterling. You must move the knight." It was a disaster. Moving the knight was a blunder. It left her king exposed. Cross grinned. He knew he had her. Maya took a shaky breath. She closed her eyes for a split second. In the darkness, she saw the jet bridge. She felt the cold metal of the handcuffs. She heard the snap of the zip ties. She opened her eyes. The fear was gone. It was replaced by a cold, hard clarity. She moved the knight. Cross laughed. He instantly slammed his queen down. Check. He hit the clock. Sterling. 0:30. Maya had 30 seconds left to play the rest of the game, but Maya didn't panic. She looked at the board. Cross had been so focused on attacking her king, so focused on her shaking hands, that he had forgotten to watch his own defense. He had underestimated her. Just like Brenda. Just like Eleanor. Maya moved her king. Cross moved his rook. Check again. Just resign, girl. Maya moved her king again. Cross reached for his bishop to deliver the final blow, but as his hand hovered over the board, he stopped. His smile vanished. He looked at where Maya had moved her knight, the blunder she had fumbled earlier. It wasn't a blunder. It was a sacrifice. By moving the knight, she had opened a diagonal line for her own bishop, a line that pointed directly at Cross's king. Cross's face went pale. He looked at the clock. Cross, 0:50. Sterling, 0:12. He had the time advantage, but he had no moves. If he took her king, her bishop would take his queen. If he moved his queen, her rook would deliver a back-rank mate. He was caught in a mating net, a trap so subtle, so deep, that he hadn't seen it until the door slammed shut. "You," Cross stammered. "You set this up? With 30 seconds on the clock?" "I told you," Maya said, her voice ringing clear in the silent hall. "My hands shake. My mind doesn't." She reached out with her gloved hand. It wasn't shaking anymore. She picked up her rook. "Checkmate," she whispered. She slammed the piece down. Thwack! For a second, there was silence. Then, the auditorium exploded. 3,000 people jumped to their feet. The roar was deafening. Confetti cannons blasted gold and silver streamers into the air. The screens flashed. "Winner! Maya! Ghost Queen!" Sterling. Cross sat frozen, staring at the board, unable to comprehend how he had lost to a cripple. Marcus Sterling leaped over the barrier. Security didn't stop him this time. He ran onto the stage and scooped his daughter up in a bear hug, lifting her off the ground. "You did it!" Marcus yelled over the crowd, tears streaming down his face. "You did it, baby!" Maya buried her face in her father's shoulder, sobbing. But they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of release. The weight of the trauma, the memory of the blood on the carpet, the shame of the handcuffs, it all washed away in the roar of the crowd. She pulled back and looked at the camera broadcasting to millions of people worldwide. She held up her gloved hand, not hiding it, but displaying it like a badge of honor. She had been handcuffed, bleeding, and discarded. But she had broken the chains. And now, the whole world knew the name Maya Sterling, not as a victim, but as a queen. What an incredible journey. Maya's story proves that true power isn't about status, money, or expensive plane tickets. It's about resilience. Eleanor Vance and the crew of Flight 902 thought they could crush Maya because she didn't look the part of a VIP. They judged her by her hoodie and her skin color, assuming she was powerless. But they learned the hard way that when you underestimate the wrong person, karma hits back with the force of a freight train. Maya didn't just win a lawsuit. She reclaimed her dignity and proved that even when you are broken physically, your spirit can remain unbreakable. So, what do you think? Did Eleanor get the punishment she deserved, or should Marcus have gone even harder? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story of justice served cold, please smash that like button, share this video with a friend who needs some inspiration, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a new story.